This VAWatchdog.org news video is brought to you by Bergman & Moore, LLC. Former VA attorneys now fighting VA for you. Call Bergman & Moore at 877-838-2889 or on the web at vetlawyers.com.
Finally tonight, our Person of the Week. Whenever Americans get a warm reception in Berlin, whether it's President Kennedy, President Reagan, or presidential hopeful Barack Obama, they owe a debt of gratitude to an American pilot who started doing something 60 years ago this week that won the heart of that city in its darkest hour.
We had freedom, we had flour, they had to have both.
It was July 1948, 3 years after the end of World War II, and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin was making a grab for Eastern Europe.
West Berlin, an island of freedom in the Red Sea, was in his way.
Berlin stood divided between East and West, so the Soviets cut off land supply lines to the 2.25 million West Berliners. The Allies decided on an airlift. American pilots began flying tons of flour, milk, meat, even coal to desperate Berliners. And 27-year-old Hal Halverson was one of those pilots. He noticed children standing behind barbed wire at the end of the runway. These are his own home movies.
And then I realized suddenly that not one of those 30 kids had put out their hand and said, "You got any chocolate?"
He gave the kids a stick of gum.
But these kids were so grateful, I had to do something.
Hal didn't ask anyone's permission. He then started fashioning tiny parachutes out of handkerchiefs and tied candy to each one. But he had to get the attention of the children on the ground below.
I'll wiggle the wings of that big airplane.
Those wing wiggles became Hal's trademark. He dropped dozens of tiny parachutes, and grateful German children spread the word about their former enemies, the Americans, and what they were doing.
They fell in love with America, and they went home and convinced their parents.
And the candy bar, that was a symbol of hope.
The military brass had no clue who the candy bomber was.
There in base op was a big stack of mail. And on the letters, it said, "To Uncle Wiggly Wings."
But a reporter had seen Hal land and got his tail number. The candy bomber was about to get busted.
Thought I was going to be court-martialed.
He was called up before a colonel.
He said, "General Tenner thinks it's a good idea. Keep doing it, but keep me informed."
Then other pilots joined in, and the candy bombing went on until the airlift ended in 1949. Americans from home were sending lots of candy and handkerchiefs.
The word came back also that I was a bachelor. And some of the handkerchiefs came black lace, perfumed. I got 3 wedding proposals.
All told, America's legions of candy bombers dropped about 250,000 tiny parachutes over Berlin and millions of pounds of candy.
Berlin we see today is in many ways a testament to what Hal Halverson did. Berlin would not have been able to survive through that terrible winter of 1948 were it not for the spirit of the people of Berlin.
The healing balm on the wounds of war is what the airlift was, because they were so grateful, like the kids. The gratitude breaks down the walls between people when one's grateful.
And so we choose Hal Halverson, who at age 87 still flies and does candy drops at American schools, helping kids understand that because of the airlift, the Soviets ended the blockade and supply lines were restored to West Berlin.
VAWatchdog.org, the nation's #1 independent veterans website, on the web at VAWatchdog.org.